How are we doing, everybody? Welcome to Russell Heritage Golf. Today we are going to be talking about how to get rid of that over the top once and for all. Over the top, just to kind of confirm, George, you can demonstrate this as you're there. If you swing up to the top of your backswing and just pause for us. Over the top basically means where everything rotates at the same rate of rotation. So I'm going to do another video after today's video where we're going to talk about the transition in more detail. But if you go on one more time, sorry. So basically he's going to be rotating his lower body, but his upper body rotates at the same rate of rotation, which means if you kind of come up a little bit left arm horizontal, things like the club shaft come down to vertically, club head then travels outside your target line, meaning that you're swinging out to in, and essentially you are going to hit, depending on the club face, anything from slices, pulls, hooks, whatever, right? Over the top isn't a great move. The reality of an over the top though, and my hesitation for those that are struggling with over the top, is that the answer isn't to just drop your arms in. So if you kind of, swing up to the top and pause and just kind of pull your arms down with no body movement, because you can't sequence a golf swing like that. It's been biomechanically proven that the best sequence of events is that the lower body needs to lead. So you can't just pull the club down, because then you're going to get stuck. You're going to have to stand up to add width to the swing. Then you're going to get just as much inconsistency, although that you won't look like you're swinging over the top. The reason why golfers get stuck in the inability to not swing over the top is due to the backswing. If you do anything where you put too much weight onto the femoral head in your backswing position, you won't have the ability to separate, which means move the lower body to initiate the downswing. You get stuck and everything is forced to swing at the same rate of rotation. So the way in which you're going to get rid of this over the top movement is if you put the club across your shoulders for me, George. So what we'll see is that once George goes into posture, we can see the way the pelvis would be very much downward facing towards the ball, like so. Now, what happens is that from the belly button down, right, so the lower part of your spine, there is very little rate of rotation in the lower vertebra. So basically you can imagine that the belly button downward to the pelvis is like one solid unit. So what I'm saying is that in the golf swing, if you can demonstrate your backswing as well for us, right? So we can see George has done a great example here of keeping the pelvis downward facing towards the ball. And that basically means is if you keep your shoulders where they are and then just slowly open up your lower body, you can see the way he's able to introduce a rate of separation. Now, if your pelvis is too horizontal, yes, then what will happen is that you're going to end up doing things where you're going to end up sliding and putting too much weight exactly on towards the actual femoral head itself, which means then if you try and separate, you're not going to be able to, and everything's going to come at the same rate. So what I would do is, I meet a lot of people where we do this in terms of lessons, is that I would just concentrate on the lower part, so belly button down, staying down towards the ground. And I wouldn't be afraid of moving in this sort of manner like I'm demonstrating here. The idea is that this will encourage the pelvis to turn into the leg, rather than if the pelvis is too horizontally placed, like so, you'll end up putting too much weight on the femoral head, inducing a kind of sliding motion similar to that. Then you're going to get stuck. Now, some of you might be doing this now at home thinking, okay, well, I can feel the difference. I can feel the weight pressure moving more under my right-hand side, but I feel like I'm massively over towards this stage. Well, if you put the club across your shoulders again and pause, this is where you have three options in the golf swing. So if you kind of turn the pelvis downward facing, very good. You could do what George has done here and you could stay pretty neutral with your kind of spine angle. You could also move a little bit over towards the right-hand side, and you can also induce a thoracic extension. So you can do three different things. You can either move over to the right and you'll still be able to separate, pretty centralized, still be able to separate, thoracic extension, still be able to separate. But what you can't afford to do is, if you're somebody who is swinging over the top, you have to keep the pelvis downward facing and the lower part of your spine downward facing, otherwise you are forever going to struggle. And if you're kind of struggling to picture that, if you swing up to the top again and pause for us. So what we can see here, and I've mentioned this before, is if you were to video your swing from a face-on perspective, just pause at the top. Lovely. This part of the spine here, so just so the camera can see, if I just move you a little bit more over, this part, the lower part of the spine in this area here, is downward facing towards the ground. So if George went into a right centered bend, Now we can see the way that it would be nice and flat if you go a little bit more centered, and then if you induce a thoracic extension, yes. So what I'm saying is that you have choices in your backswing position, reference what your upper body is going to be doing, but the absolute priority is to ensure that the lower part of your pelvis stays very much downward facing, and if you can do that, then you'll have the ability to separate, which basically means that you won't be forced to swing over the top. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Always appreciate a thumbs up and a like. Remember, it's absolutely free to press that subscribe button. If you're going to do so, you might as well press the little bell icon, because that means you'll receive notifications every time a new video comes out. Stop swinging over the top. Understand that the pelvis and the lower part of the spine is one unit, and it has to stay very much downward facing. That will give you the ability to separate, which we're going to talk about again next. Catch up with you soon.